people are going to be watching.
Is a machloke about what the 613th commandment is. I was going to kind of like go through that. So it actually was like in the middle of the Shulchan Aruch. I don't have it yet.
Huh.
I mean, I'll try and let's see, like, you know. So, what am I doing? Oh, a microphone. Yeah. So I can kind of like give voice. We're almost there. Yeah, let's just assume there's an idea. Oh, so on Sunday I'll be there. So I mean, I can do. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. And Shabbat Shalom to all of you who are with us online. We are going to begin our services with, you don't want to sing something?
With Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem is a good thing to sing. So we welcome everyone. Shalom, you mean out of this nice printed list, the thing that's at the top of the list?
The very first thing is a good place. It's a very good place to start.
There you go.
It's been a week, but it's a week with a new start, a new year, and Shemitah in Israel. What more could you ask for?
That's right.
Here we go. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu ni l'shalom, malachei Hashalom, malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, malachei Hashalom, malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Page 11, Lechu Neranena.
Lechu neranena l'Adonai, nariya letzor yishenu, nekadma fana bitoda, bizmirot nariya lo, nekadma fana bitoda, bizmirot nariya lo. Ki el gadol Adonai umelech gadol al kol Elohim asher biyado mechkerei aretz v'toafot harim lo asher biyado mechkerei aretz v'toafot harim lo. Asher lo yam yivasau v'yavashem yadam yadam
About 5 lines up on from the bottom of page 12.
Arba'im shana akud bidor va'omaram to'e levavim v'im lo yadu derachai asher nishbati be'api im yevo'un el menuchati.
Page 15.
Adonai malach tagel haaretz yismechu im rabim. Anan v'rafel zevivam danim. Or zaru ala tzadik ulishrei lev simcha simchu tzadikim b'Adonai v'yodu lezecher kodsho mizmor shir l'Adonai shir chadash ki niflaot asa hoshia lo yamin ozro kodsho.
Towards the bottom of page 18.
Lifnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz, yishpot tevel b'tzedek, ve'amim b'meisharim.
And we're going to greet the Shabbat bride, and we recognize that she may be a little fatigued from all the yontif and the davening and the apples and the honey, but we are pleased to see her, and may we all get a well-deserved rest on this Shabbat. Lecha Dodi, page 23.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad hishmi'anu ela meyuchad Adonai echad ushmo echad l'shem ultiferet ve'litila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor habiracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof maaseh b'machshava techila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. O mikdash melech ir melucha kumitzei mitoch afecha rav lach shevet b'yemecha bacha v'hu yachamol alayich emla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. We're going to skip to the top of page 25. Hayulim shisa sha'osayich v'rachaku kol mevalayich yasis alayich Elohayich kimsos chatan al kala. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. O yaminu smol tifrotzi v'et Adonai ta'aritzi al yad ish ben partzi ben ismecha v'nagila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
And we continue with Mizmor Shir on page 27.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות, להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב להודות, להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות. עלי עשור ועלי נע ועלי גמין ויציצו כל פולאו ומשם נמויתם כי נראה ועלי המגע. צדיקה תמר יפרח כארז בלבנון, יזכה שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו, עוד ינובון בשיבה, דשנים ורעננים יהיו, להגיד כי ישר אדוני, צורי צורי ולא עוולתה בו.
So for all of you online, we want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. And for those of you who are here in person, would we like a volunteer to light the Shabbat candles? Don't all jump. Okay, well, it's a good thing that the Shabbat candles are not the 613th mitzvah, which we will talk about today, and that's in the Torah portion. The Shabbat candles probably were a later addition by the rabbis to make sure that you wouldn't eat dinner in the dark like the Karaites did. And so what we will do is I am going to assume the honor of lighting the candles. Look at that. But the cantor, could you assume the honor of singing the blessing. So
Sure.
all those online will not be, like their Wi-Fi won't go out. Okay?
Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 ya, na, 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 na. Lie, 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 lie. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, b'mitzvotav. V'tzivanu lehadlik ner, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner, shel Shabbat.
And may this Shabbat, the first Shabbat of the year 5782, usher in a period of peace and prosperity and health for us, for our families, for the entire Jewish people, for the nation of Israel, and for the whole world. And let us all say,
Amen.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. You can all be seated. I was being a bit cheeky before, but that's okay because most people are online, and so they cannot comment on, well, they can comment on my cheekiness, but they can't see they can type it right in for testimony forever. But this week's Torah portion contains the very last. It's sort of fitting. We start the new year and then we read about the last mitzvah, right? The very last mitzvah of the 613. So I'm not going to ask you what the 483rd mitzvah is, nor the 265th, but I will ask you, what is the 613th mitzvah, which comes from this week, according to the rabbinic sages? I'm so OCD, this is bothering me. It's, I can't leave it alone. So, there you go. Thanks, Jack. Okay. There we go. And anyway, by the way, Judy, muksa on Shabbos. Okay. So anyway, I digress. What is the 613th mitzvah? Now, if you are online and at home and you know, you can type it into the chat. But we will never know that you knew the answer because we can't see the chat, but at least you could show off to all of your friends. So that's good, but showing off is not very mitzvah appropriate. Okay, so I'm a little all over the place. What is the 613th mitzvah? Does anyone want to venture a guess? Is it to come to shul in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? No, but you still get good credit for that. All right, so the 613th mitzvah is to write a Sefer Torah. The 613th mitzvah. And there's this nifty book called Sefer HaChinuch, which goes through all 613 mitzvot, and sort of one by one. And you'll notice, right at the end, we're on the 613th mitzvah, and where does it come from? To write a Torah. Has anyone ever participated in a Torah writing ceremony? Mel, you have? You did here. When did we do that project?
No. It was about 10, 12, 10.
Either 10, 12, or 20 years ago. Somewhere. It was a shul, right. So a lot of synagogues use it as a fundraiser, and everyone participates. You have the children and adults and people. And what the sofer does is the sofer allows you to kind of complete a letter, and that's symbolic as you're completing a Sefer Torah. So the question is, where does this idea come from? And it's sort of interesting because it requires some rabbinic interpretation. In this week's Torah portion, Moses, and I'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow, if I'm speaking tomorrow, we're not sure, but if not, I'll get you next year on it. Moses tells the people that he's not going with them. And when he's doing that, he wants to assure, of course, that they will continue to live observant lives. So what he does is he says, basically, I'm going to sing a poem to you, and you're going to take this poem, write it down, and bring it with you. What's interesting, so it's on verse 19. You don't have to bother, I'll read it for you, both in Hebrew and in English. Chapter 31, verse 19. At the end of the book Deuteronomy, right before Moses departs, he says, V'ata kitvu lachem et hashira hazot. And now, therefore, write down this poem, V'lamda et b'nei Israel, and teach it to the children of Israel, Sima b'fihem, and that it will be in order, that it will be, that it'll be in their mouths, Leman tieli hashira hazot le'ed b'vnei Yisrael, in order that it will be a testimony or a witness against the people. In other words, they should know. It's like when I told my kids, like, I told you this 6 million times. This is Moses saying that to the people of Israel. The Torah's told you this 6 million times, and you have it right there in front of you, so lest you... Yes, Eliana. That's much more lovely than what I was going to say. So what Eliana said, for those of you online, is that the project of the community coming together and writing a Sefer Torah allows for them to, it solidifies them as a people. It brings them all together. And maybe that's the 600, I'm extrapolating a little bit on what you're saying, but that's really the 613th mitzvah. Right? That's beautiful. It's more of a contemporary thing, this whole like ceremony. In the Middle Ages, and actually it's interesting that you should mention that, because the question is, first of all, it's pretty clear that the pshat, or the simple meaning of the text, doesn't refer to the whole body of the Torah itself. It refers to the poem that Moses is about to sing to the people, which is next week's Torah portion. So he says, V'ata kitvu lachem et hashira hazot. Now write down this shira, this poem, or this song, and then, so it's not probably the whole text, but the rabbis are not really literalists. They read robustly, and so what they do is they say, no, it means the whole text. And it probably is, why would the rabbis want people to write Sifrei Torah? Why would they want them to write Torah scrolls? Go ahead. You're on a roll. We'll give you the mic. Go ahead. Sure.
Shabbat Shalom, Adad Ariel. Hi, everybody. Hello. So, from my experience, Okay. Hi, everybody. From my experience, when I write things down, it gives my brain a chance to process. So, if you write down the teachings of our people, and you physically write it down, think about the sensory experience you're having here. So you're not only seeing it, you're not only feeling it, but the physical holding the quill, writing each letter, and remember all the special symbols that go above it, like all the little crowns. And so we're visualizing it, we're seeing it, we're feeling the quill, and then we're also smelling it, and smelling the parchment of the Torah, and then we are also hearing it, and hearing every letter that we're writing. And when you take all that together, and you are able to write it down, and go through all those sensory experiences, you're really internalizing the lessons of our peoplehood.
So they didn't say it as eloquently as Eliana did, but in Masechet Sanhedrin of the Talmud, that's exactly what they want. In the Talmud, they say what this verse means is write it down. Why write it down? And it was your first sentence, process. They want you to engage with the text. Back then, think about this predates the printing press. So any text, in order for it to have been studied or processed or experienced, needed to be written down by hand in order to assure that it would stay alive and that it would stay as a vibrant text throughout the communities. So that's the rabbis, the early rabbis. They actually want everyone to go home, not to do like a tekes, a ceremony. They don't want you to do a ceremony in the shul. They want you to actually have it at home, because there were no library. You didn't have like a personal library back then. You had a bunch of scrolls that you interacted with. Think of like the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? That's a library of a group of people. So later on, though, that's the Talmud. About 1,000 years after the Talmud, there's this rabbinic scholar named the Rosh. And what the Rosh says is, don't read this text literally. That you can not only write a Sefer Torah, but you can actually write any rabbinic commentary, or that you can write the Mishnah. That you're not limited to the Torah itself. The commandment is not literally to write a Sefer Torah, but it's it's spiritually to add to sort of like the corpus of Jewish learning and knowledge. And there's a great debate, because the Shulchan Aruch, which comes next, takes the Rosh on and says, what are you talking about? Of course the Torah should be written literally. The mitzvah is to write a Torah itself. Not the Mishnah, not the Talmud, not a nice commentary, but write the Torah itself. And the Rosh says, no, you can write it, it's more expansively. It's not to be read literally. What's interesting about the Rosh's approach is it's Eliana's approach as well, which is the Rosh wants people to experience Judaism, and he by that time, by the way, there's the printing press, and he realizes that scrolls are kept in synagogues, and that most people don't have a Torah in their house. So he wants people to be writing, he wants people to be engaged in Torah study. He even, I think, writes, I didn't get to this part yet, to actually even like support financially the writing of a text. So it's a literalist approach versus a more sort of expansive approach. And I like the Rosh's approach, where the mitzvah is not to write a Torah, but the mitzvah really is the idea of writing or engaging or processing Jewish studies. So I hope this year of 5,782 is a year of the 613th commandment according to the Rosh, which is engagement in Jewish study. And I hope that engagement leads to transformation in our own lives. So thank you, Eliana, for writing the Devar Torah for me. It was great. Thank you. What's that? My pleasure. And we will now continue with the Mariv service on whatever page it can be found.
39A.
Page 39A. Please rise to the Baruch Hu.
Lai, 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 la, lai, 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 la, lai, 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 dai, 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 lai, dai, dai. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMivorach. Baruch Adonai HaMivorach Leolam, Leolam Va'ed. Lai, dai, 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 lai, dai, na, nai, nai, lai, 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 nai, nai, lai, dai, dai, lai, dai, 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 lai, dai, na, nai, nai, lai, 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 lai.
Please be seated for the first bracha before the Shema.
Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uven laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo, El chai v'kayam, tamidim lo chaleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ari v'aravim,
Amen.
Ahavat olam beit Yisrael ahavta Torah mitzvot. V'avatcha tasir mimenu li'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam Beshivtecha beveitecha uvlechtecha vaderech uvshochbecha uvkumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha vehayu letotafot beinenecha uchtaptam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha vehayam.
And we continue silently through the bottom portion of page 42.
Adonai Elohechem emet ve'emunah kol tovachem aleinu ki Adonai Eloheinu v'einu l'olam U'malchuto b'ratzon kiblu aleihem Moshe u'Miriam u'bnei Yisrael echa'anu shira b'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh Nora tehilot osefele malchutcha ra'uvanecha boker yam lifnei Moshe ze eli anu b'yameru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed V'ne'emar ki fod Adonai et Yaakov u'gealo mi'ad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
Amen.
Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'videnu malkeinu l'chaim prosel yisukach shalach v'tachneinu Ufros aleinu sukat shalomecha, Baruch atah Adonai, Haporei sukat shalom aleinu, V'al kol amo Yisrael, V'al Yerushalayim.
Please rise. Vishamru, page 46.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבס לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבס לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ביום השביעי ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא יברח ירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יש שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה ולעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעולמה ואמרו Amen.
The Amidah, which is our time for our own personal prayers and reflections, begins on page 47. And keep in mind that we're in the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, the 10 days of repentance, so to make the appropriate textual emendations.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו, אמרו, אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו, אמרו, אמן. Yambanai nai 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya na nai 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 ya nai 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 Yoseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו, אמרו, אמן. יתקרא ויקרא שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירות וימליך מלכותי בחיי חונן וימי חונן וחי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו, אמן. ישמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ליומי יומיה יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויתברך ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי לקודשה, בריחו לעילה ולעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בימה ויאמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותון ובעלתון דכל ישראל קודם אבוהן וישמעיה ויאמרו אמן. יש למה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו וכל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו amen.
Please rise. The Kiddush can be found on page 55. And for those of you at home, raise your Kiddush cups along with the cantor, page 55.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri agafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל עמים. ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Please remain standing for our language, page 56.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו יהיו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומשב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום והשבותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא אלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. על כן נקבל לך אדוני אלוהים, תקן עולם המלכות שלנו וכל בני מסורת. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו echad.
And we'll invite everyone to please be seated as we continue with the 27th Psalm, page 59.
לדוד אדוני אורי וישי ממאיר אדוני מעוז חיה ממאבחד בקרובי אלי מרים. Eighth line down. אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני אותה אבקש. אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני אותה אבקש. שבתי בבית אדוני כל ימי חיי, לחזות בנועם אדוני, ולבקר בהיכלו. לחזות בנועם אדוני, ולבקר בהיכלו. כי יצפנני בסופה מיום רעה, אשר אדוני שמעני, כי אביבי ביענמוני אדוני יוספני. לולא האמנתי לראות בטוב אדוני בארץ חיים, קווה אל אדוני וחזק ויאמץ ליבך, וקווה אל אדוני.
At this point in the service, we'll acknowledge those who no longer walk this earth. And on this, the 6th day of Tishrei, corresponding to the 6th day of Tishrei, we observe the yurtzites of Ethel Tassoff, Rabbi Sam Labinger, Edith Seehoff, Thelma Gale, Rivka Edelman, Arlene Schwartz, and Rhoda Andrews. At this point, we'd like to ask those of you who are mourning or observing a yurtzeit to please rise as we sanctify God's name with the words of Mourner's Kaddish, page 58. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon u'v'yameachon u'v'chayei decho beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mavarach le'olam ome'el maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudisha b'richu le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiram v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. And we'd like to wish all of you who are in mourning comfort in the coming year, as we all say, Amen. So I just want to wish everyone a Shana Tova, and just to let everyone know that we have lots of good things to celebrate in the coming year. We have Yom Kippur coming up next week. Are you busy next week? You think
I'll drop by.
you'll be here for Yom Kippur?
I'll be here.
Cantor Aronoff will be here for Yom Kippur, and as will just, and if you will be with us virtually, we welcome that as well. And then, of course, we have a whole litany of programs and opportunities, educational opportunities. Chance to honor Rabbi Bernhard is coming up later this month, Sukkot. So lots of good things. So please stay in touch with on our emails to know exactly when and what and where to be. I think with that, we're going to conclude services. Tomorrow morning, by the way, services begin at
9:30.
Okay.
Right here.
Oh, and we'd like to thank David Kaminer for being here. We'd like to thank Cantor Aronoff for being here.
I'd like to thank Rabbi Schuldenfrei for being here.
And we'd like to, we'll just keep thanking each other. I'd like to thank you for leading such a beautiful high holiday service over the Rosh Hashanah.
Thank you. Check off to you.
Thank you. Page 62, Yigdal.
יגדל אלוהים חי וישתבח, נמצא ואין עת אל מציאותו, אחד ואין יחיד כייחודו, נעלם וגם אין סוף לאחדותו, אין לו דמות הגוף ואינו גוף, לא נערוך אליו קדושתו, קדמון לכל דבר אשר נברא, ראשון ואין ראשית לראשיתו, הינו אדון עולם וכל נוצר, יורה גדולתו ומלכותו, שפע נבואתו נתנו, אל אנשי סגולתו ותפארתו, לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד נביא ומביט את תמונתו, תורת אמת נתן לימואל, על יד נביאו נאמן ביתו, לא יכל לפועל ולא ימיר דתו, לעולמים לזולתו, צופה ויודע סתרנו, מביט לסוף דבר בקדמתו, גומל לאיש חסד כמפעלו, נותן לרשע רע כרישתו, ישלח לקץ ימין משיחנו, לפתות מחכה קץ ישועתו, מתים יחייאל ברוב חסדו, ברוך הדיית שם תהילתו, מתים יחייאל ברוב חסדו, ברוך הדיית שם תהילתו.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos.
meat. I mean, we do the impossible. We have so much of it.